You know what I ask myself all the time? WWJD. What would Jesus do? The clash between Metro Boomin and Drake has recently sent shockwaves through social media. Due to a mix of subliminal messaging, Twitter likes, and accusation, the beef has come to the attention of fans. Their issues come as a bit of a surprise, as while Drake may be involved in other high-profile conflicts, Metro Boomin doesn't seem to have any issues with a lot of rappers, collaborating with some of the biggest names in hip-hop without causing any problems for years. And as the saying goes,
If your Metro don't trust you, I'm gonna shoot you.
from suggestions from quote-unquote journalists, as well as mixed messages given from the actual artists involved, it seems that these issues have been going on for years. But what started it? And how serious are the issues between the two? And what does Jesus have to do with any of this? Absolutely nothing. Drake and Metro have been working together from a pretty early stage in Metro's career. First indirectly when Drake hopped on a remix for Tuesday with I Love McKinnon back in 2014, and in 2015, Metro almost exclusively produced the music for Drake and Future's collab album, What a Time to Be Alive. Now, fun fact about that album, if you were a really annoying person in high school, you probably really liked it. Their collaborations have led to receiving a multitude of platinum certified songs and a 5-time platinum record with Jumpman, a song where, in my opinion, it helped solidify Metro's career as a mainstream music producer. And that was likely down to the prominence of Drake's influence at the time. Drake in 2015 was at the beginning of an extraordinary run, making, in my opinion, some of the best music in his career. For him to give Metro the keys to an album he's working on would skyrocket the career of any major producer, let alone one of the quality of Metro Boomin. From public images and also the types of people Metro typically works with, the likes of Travis Scott, Future, 21 Savage, amongst others, they all hold pretty close relationships with Drake, with 2 of the mentioned 3 making collaboration albums with Drake. I mean, if I'm friends with your friends, then that usually would mean we would be a good fit as friends as well, but apparently Metro doesn't share that same sandbox mentality that the rest of us do. Clearly it has to be a relatively big issue between them for things to have soured to such a passive-aggressive point. The one thing I noticed about the relationship between Drake and Metro is how Metro has not produced a single song on any of Drake's albums post What a Time to Be Alive, all except Knife Talk off of Certified Lover Boy. More on that in a second. Now you can put this down to differing artist styles and Drake maybe not matching Metro's style of production, but I disagree. Metro has been able to transform 21 Savage's sound tremendously between Savage Mode 1 to Savage Mode 2. Now, no hate for 21 Savage. I actually think he was a large factor as to why her loss was so well received, but I don't think he has as much ability or versatility as someone like Drake. So maybe it's Drake's own internal decision making, not wanting Metro producing his music. I mean, it's not unlike Drake to kick people off of songs if he doesn't like their verses. Just look at someone like Trippie Redd and the God's Plan verse that we never heard, or the catalog of artists that said they had a feature from Drake only for it to never release, much like Blueface. While these are compelling factors, it's in my opinion that Drake has always been an innovator when it comes to his projects, and I give Drake a lot of shit. Metro, out of most producers of this generation, has had the biggest rise in prominence. In my view, he is one of the only producers that is just as recognizable as most mainstream rappers, and Drake definitely likes to bite off the next big thing. There's no way that someone at the pinnacle of their game would be somebody that Drake would ignore for his projects, especially when he has a proven record of success working with him in the past. So if it isn't a mutual understanding, and Drake isn't the one holding things up, that only leaves Metro's side of things. Now, Metro worked with Drake on Not All Heroes Wear Capes, Metro's debut project, and it's almost unheard of for a producer to release their own album, and it's even more unheard of for that project to be a success. So it only makes sense that if Metro was going to accomplish both of these things, he would need the backing of major artists to help incentivize listeners. Hence, Metro put Drake and Offset together on No Complaints. Kind of an ironic title now, if you ask me. It also is backed up by the fact that Metro produced the previously mentioned Knife Talk for Certified Lover Boy. So this makes it seem like Metro isn't the problem then, right? Or at least that there isn't any problem with the collaborations between the two. Well, there was a theory going around that Knife Talk actually wasn't supposed to be a Drake song, and in fact was a 21 Savage song. Now, this at the time was pure speculation. Like, sure, it sounds like a 21 Savage type beat Google search that you would make, but at the end of the day, Drake has it on his album, and he's also on the song, so it doesn't get much more concrete than that. But then the bomb dropped with Metro's second album, Heroes and Villains, primarily about the song Trance. There was a leak that dropped about a year ago that contained an unreleased Drake verse, and that started a whole flood of conversations. Metro responded by saying that the leak for Trance was already finished by the time that Drake had heard and recorded his verse, and so Metro didn't want Drake on the song because he thought it would be way too crowded, which is just such a lukewarm excuse to give when you don't want to invite somebody to a party. You say, oh, I've invited too many people already, like, can't have any more people, and it turns out to be complete bullshit. Then there was the other bombshell, that was the fact that Knife Talk wasn't actually intended for Drake in the first place, but was given to 21 Savage and was called Gang Shit. 21 Savage had shifted the song to Drake to put on his album. So not only once, but twice did Metro try to swerve Drake when it came to songs that he produced. But again, why? I think a lot of Metro's mindset in music has to do with the levels of animosity shown in his relationship with Drake. Much like the sandbox that I mentioned earlier, if you've ever had a popular friend in your friend group, it can often devolve into being referred to as, oh, you're Lil Timmy's friend. Now, I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but it's a shitty feeling. Makes you feel like you're a secondary or an accessory of a person and not your own dedicated individual. So imagine that on a grander scale of every single person that has collaborated with Drake. I mean, I did a very similar thing in this video, where I devolved the success of Metro's come up as being related to how successful Drake was in 2015. I would say that Metro has a mentality similar to other rappers, yet he has it 10 times harder due to the producer tag he's associated with. He wants to be recognized as his own independent artistic genius. He wasn't built by anybody, he pioneered his own success. If you ever watched the Kanye documentary, Ye faced a lot of difficulty getting recognized as a rapper due to making beats for Jay-Z. I don't doubt those types of hurdles aren't still in place for somebody like Metro, who also isn't a rapper himself, and still wants to be given the same props he deserves for the music that he creates. I mean, when a song sounds good and is a hit, no one thinks of the producer, but Metro has been one of the people that has been shifting that narrative. And it's something that he's actually been praised for by fellow producer Hit Boy. So what does that have to do with Drake? Drake, not just as an artist, but as a concept in hip-hop, is like a cheat code. And with any good cheat code, in most cases, your brother is using it against you. But it also gives you some sort of benefit. And in this case, it would be in the respect of streams and exposure. But with most cheat codes in games now, if you use them, you get locked out of the achievements. And that parallel exists in music as well. I mean, on paper, what sounds more impressive? Having a hit song with 1 billion streams with a combination of mid to low tier artists, or hitting 2 billion streams with Drake? Artistically, and for the good of music, it's the former over the latter. Metro definitely views himself as somebody who doesn't use gimmicks or cater to what is guaranteed to work at this point in his career. His tweets about her loss and Heroes vs. Villains showcases he isn't a fan of doing what's popular just for the sake of it. Drake represents a fast track to success, whereas Metro wants to be represented by his own merit. You could argue that I'm wrong though. I mean, after all, Drake was on Not All Heroes Wear Capes, which makes me look like a massive hypocrite. However, this was a project in which Metro was trying to establish his own brand, and so using a Drake feature would help to propel him to a situation of self-sufficiency. Once he started to receive his own recognition, he no longer felt compelled to use Drake as a feature. In fact, has used this factor against Drake to keep him off his music. I mean, there is no real reason for why Metro would keep Drake off of Trance if it weren't down to a difference of mentality. Even if the song was truly finished, as Drake subtweeted at Metro, it could have been the difference between moving 2 billion streams and 3 billion streams. Only pride would make you concerned enough to turn down something that is considered a sure thing. If Drake had done something similar when Metro was making Not All Heroes Wear Capes, I would guarantee that Metro would have reworked the song and/or album to incorporate Drake's request. At the stage he is at now, however, he doesn't need Drake to push him further. In fact, he likely feels that in order to evolve, he has to prove that he is better than someone like Drake. In Metro's mind, they aren't collaborators, they're competitors. And since Metro isn't able to compete with Drake on the same song, verse for verse, the only solution is to keep him off of his projects and go toe-to-toe with Drake albums instead. And this can also explain the hostility Metro has aimed towards Drake on social media, especially when it came to her loss. Now for Metro, the whole situation is probably not anything new. When he got asked about the Drake beef on Twitter, he replied and deleted that it wasn't that deep. And from my perspective, it probably isn't. To really boil this down, it is all about the personal preferences of these artists. Metro doesn't want Drake on his music right now, point blank. And that isn't an unfair request. Nobody has an outright privilege to anyone else's work. It could be taken that his comments about her loss were disrespectful in nature to Drake, but there's two issues with that. One, it was a collab with 21 Savage as well, someone that Metro is clearly close friends with, and Savage doesn't seem to harbor any hurt feelings over a tweet of disappointment that Metro had put out. The second is that hip-hop used to be about being competitive. I mean, Metro's reaction is how anyone at the top of their game would feel when they produce a well-received project and they don't get a lot of the plaudits that they think they deserve. This is how we get better and better music. To me, it reeks of parasocialism and just egos out of balance. It makes sense that when you have celebrities on this scale having issues with each other that things would get blown out of proportion. But music is an industry. Coworkers don't have to like each other. I don't doubt that things can get worked out between Drake and Metro. It seems like their conflict is inherently music-based and nothing personal, which is good. What do you think of the Metro and Drake beef? Is it deeper than what I think it is? Let me know in the comments below.